Hospitals are supposed to smell like new beginnings. But for Raymond, that evening, the air reeked of something else, fear. Raymond stormed through the glass doors of the Lagos Island General like a man being chased by fire. His designer shoes squeaked against the polished floor, but he didn't care. "Where's my baby?" he shouted, his voice echoing down the long corridor, startling the waiting patients and nurses alike. There was laughter in his tone, the kind of giddy laugh that comes when dreams feel solid and certain. To Raymond, this was the moment he had been waiting for his crown as a father, the chapter that would complete his perfect life. A young nurse, tired but amused at his excitement, smiled and pointed toward the neonatal section. "Over there, sir. That's your baby girl." Raymond's heart raced as he walked quickly, then faster, almost running toward the small crib near the window. His mind was already decorating futures, a pink-themed nursery with golden trimmings, tiny dresses hung neatly in rows, birthday parties by the pool at their Lekki mansion, the little girl who would one day call him daddy. He was ready to carry his princess, to promise her the world. Then he stopped. The smile melted off his face. His hands dropped to his sides, his throat closed as though the very air had turned against him. Inside the crib lay his daughter, tiny, frail, yet very much alive. But her body carried marks that stole his joy. Her skin was patchy, uneven, with wrinkled lines that made her look older than her few minutes on Earth. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, and her eyes, those enormous eyes, looked around the room like they were searching for answers. Raymond staggered back. What is this?" His voice cracked, not in anger but in disbelief. He had expected beauty. He had expected perfection. What he saw felt like punishment. On the bed behind him, Anita stirred. Her body was weak, her eyelids fluttering open like the wings of a butterfly too fragile for flight. She had carried this child for 9 long months, through swollen feet, nausea, and sleepless nights. Now, with the effort of a queen reclaiming her throne, she whispered, "Raymond, our baby?" A nurse gently lifted the child and placed her in Anita's arms. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Anita gasped loudly, violently. No, this can't be mine," she cried, her voice trembling. She pushed the baby away as if the tiny bundle burned her skin. "Where is my daughter? The beautiful one I dreamed of? The princess with a tiara in my visions? Who replaced her with this?" Her scream sliced the room open. Nurses exchanged knowing glances. One muttered under her breath, "Here we go again." Another, more outspoken, folded her arms and said flatly, "Madam, this is your child. If you doubt, you can always do a DNA test." Raymond said nothing. He just stood there like a statue cracked in the middle, the weight of disappointment bending him from the inside. The dreams he carried into that hospital had dissolved into smoke. Midnight has a way of testing mothers. Some cradle their babies closer. Others let fear cradle them instead. Hours later, the hospital lay in silence. The buzz of visitors had faded. The cries of newborns softened into occasional whimpers. Even Raymond had dozed off in the corner chair, exhaustion written across his expensive suit. But Anita lay awake, her mind restless. The child had been placed beside her, wrapped tightly in a shawl. Anita stared at the little face for what felt like eternity. Then she rose. Slowly, quietly, she lifted the baby. Her arms shook, not from weakness but from a war within. Step by step, she walked out of the ward, through a side corridor, until she reached the back of the compound. The moon glowed like a nosy neighbor, watching every move. Ahead of her stretched the river, dark, silent, cold. She stood at the edge, the baby breathing softly, against her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her tears soaking the shawl. "I wanted a princess. I wanted beauty. I wanted the world to clap when they saw you. But you will make them laugh at me. At us. They'll call you names. They'll call me cursed. And I don't have the strength for that." Her sobs turned bitter. "What kind of baby looks like this? Who will marry you? Who will call you precious? Oh God, forgive me." Her hands shook harder. Then, with one final sigh, she leaned forward and dropped the baby into the river. Anita turned and ran, her slippers slapping against the dirt road, her breaths shallow and fast. She ran as though running away from her guilt, but behind her, something unexpected happened. The river did not swallow the baby. Instead, she floated gently, the shawl cradling her like a second womb. The current rocked her softly, as if the water itself refused to accept the rejection. A weak, steady cry rose into the night. It was not loud enough to wake the city, but it was enough to let the universe know, This child wanted to live. Morning at the river often brings peace. But that day, it brought a miracle. The sun stretched lazily across the horizon. Birds chirped. The water glistened as though nothing had happened the night before. Veronica walked toward the river with her 7-year-old son, Elliot. It was their routine: sit by the water, talk about dreams, throw pebbles, and watch the ripples chase each other. "Mom." Elliot's voice cracked with shock. He pointed toward the river. "That's a baby." Veronica frowned. "Elliot, don't start again with your stories. We're not here for fairy tales." But Elliot's eyes stayed wide, unmoving. "No, Mom. Look. She's crying." Veronica followed his gaze, and her heart skipped a beat. Just a few steps away, wrapped in a damp shawl, floated a newborn. Veronica rushed to the edge, waded into the water, and scooped the baby into her arms. Cold, weak, but alive. "Oh my God," she whispered. "She's barely a day old." She pressed the tiny body against her chest. Elliot tugged at her arm. "She looks sick, Mom. We should take her to the hospital." Veronica nodded, holding the baby closer. "You're right, let's go." With one hand clutching her son and the other holding the rescued infant, Veronica ran. Behind them, the river flowed quietly, as if keeping the secret of the night. By evening, the city would know the river's secret, and 2 guilty hearts would choke on it. That night, the news exploded across television screens. Newborn found alive, floating in Lagos River, a miracle. The cameras showed images of the baby, fragile but breathing. Veronica's face was blurred for privacy, but her voice rang clear. "We just found her floating. Thank God she's alive." Across town, in a mansion with marble floors and bowls of imported fruit on the table, Anita and Raymond sat watching the same news. Raymond scoffed and grabbed the remote. "So now the country is celebrating that thing?" Anita rolled her eyes, sipping her wine. "If this is what they call a child, then it's better not to have one at all." They spoke with arrogance, but inside Anita's chest, something small began to stir, a shaking she could not name. The baby she thought gone forever was alive. Not every mother gives birth. Some are made the moment they decide a child will not be abandoned twice. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fresh worry. Veronica sat in the waiting room with the baby wrapped in a thicker blanket, rocking her gently. Elliot pressed his small hand against the child's cheek. "She's cold, Mommy. Will she die?" Veronica swallowed the knot in her throat. "Not if I can help it." Minutes later, a doctor emerged from the neonatal unit. His face was professional, but his eyes betrayed concern. "Madam," he began carefully, "the baby needs urgent intervention. Her chest wall is unusually tight, her bones aren't forming properly, and she has a rare facial condition. Multiple surgeries will be required, and frankly, it will cost millions." Veronica nodded once, without flinching. "Do it." The doctor blinked, surprised. "Madam, you didn't even hesitate." She looked down at the baby, who had just opened those enormous eyes that held oceans of unanswered questions. "She's already fought to live. I won't let her fight alone." The doctor leaned closer, voice low. "I must be honest. It will drain you. The hospital bills alone could destroy a family's finances." Veronica smiled faintly. "Money can be found again. A child's life cannot." Elliot, watching closely, puffed his chest like a little soldier. "She's our family now," he declared. And just like that, the decision was sealed. Veronica had birthed her second child not from her womb, but from the stubborn fire in her heart. Love is expensive, but the most expensive love is the kind that asks for everything and pays in silence. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits, endless forms, and invoices that seemed taller than Veronica herself. At first, she sold her jewelry, the gold bangles gifted to her by her late husband, the necklace passed down from her grandmother. Next went her car, then the second shop she had worked so hard to build. When that wasn't enough, she sold her land back in the village. Neighbors shook their heads. "Are you mad, Veronica? You don't even know whose child this is. For all you know, she came with a curse. You'll pour your life into this child, and what will you get?" But Veronica never answered. She had named the child Miracle because that's what she was. The river tried to keep her, but life insisted she stay. Every time Veronica looked at her, she saw a second chance, not just for the baby but for herself. Elliot loved her fiercely. He would sit by Miracle's crib, holding her tiny hand and whispering promises no 7-year-old should need to make. "Don't worry, I'll protect you. If anyone laughs, I'll fight them. You'll never be alone." Veronica overheard once and turned away quickly, wiping her tears. Her son was growing into something rare. A protector born of empathy, not ego. While one home emptied itself to save a child, another filled its rooms with silence and wine glasses. Across the city, in their Lekki mansion with glass walls overlooking the Atlantic, Anita and Raymond carried on as if nothing had happened. On the outside, their lives sparkled. Cars came and went. Their marble dining table gleamed under chandelier light. But beneath it all was a gnawing emptiness. Anita laughed at the news anchor, masking the echo of guilt in her chest. Raymond buried himself in work, in contracts and board meetings, avoiding the thought that their daughter, his blood, was alive somewhere in the city. But silence is a cruel companion. At night, when the world calmed, guilt scratched at Anita's heart like a rat in the walls. She would hear phantom cries echoing through the mansion's empty halls. Sometimes she woke up sweaty, convinced she had heard a baby's voice calling her name. She would clutch her pillow, whispering, "No, no, that child is not mine. I did the right thing." Raymond, meanwhile, found himself staring too long at other people's children. At church, he watched little girls run into their father's arms and felt something twist inside him. At meetings, he caught himself doodling names on his notepad, names he had once considered for his daughter. He shook it off with anger. One night, after a board dinner, he confessed to Anita, his voice hoarse with liquor, "Do you ever wonder if we made a mistake?" Anita's eyes flashed. "Don't start. That baby was not ours. That thing was not what we prayed for." But her hands trembled as she lifted her glass. Children grow fast, but guilt grows faster when it is left to rot in silence. Miracle's surgeries began. The first opened her chest, letting her lungs breathe properly. The second corrected her jaw, giving her the chance to feed without struggle. Each time, Veronica signed the consent papers with steady hands, but behind closed doors she cried. Elliot sat with her, his small hand patting hers, whispering, "Don't worry, Mommy. She'll be okay." Months stretched into years. Miracle's body healed, but her eyes never changed. They were wide, bold, haunting eyes that seemed to see the world in layers others could not. Veronica often said with a smile, "That's why God gave her those eyes, to see love where others see shame." At school, children mocked her. "Why are your eyes so big? Why do you look different?" But before tears could fall, Elliot was there, fists clenched, daring anyone to say it again. "She sees better than all of you combined," he would snap. By the time Miracle was 6, their little family had grown into something unshakable. Veronica worked 3 jobs, cleaner by morning, laundry woman by afternoon, and roasted corn seller by night. Her hands blistered, her back ached, but her heart overflowed with purpose. Some nights, when the bills outnumbered the food on the table, she would pretend to cough and say, "I'm fasting today. You two eat." Elliot always saw through it. Miracle, too innocent, would leave a piece of fish on her plate. For Mommy to taste later. They weren't rich. Their shoes often had holes, and their clothes smelled of smoke from the roasting stand. But their home pulsed with laughter, prayers, and the kind of love money couldn't counterfeit. Time has a cruel sense of irony. Just when one family found joy in scarcity, another discovered barrenness in abundance. Anita had been trying for years. Fertility treatments, herbal teas, fasting, special doctors abroad, nothing worked. Each negative test crushed her spirit further. She grew lean, her once radiant skin dulling under the weight of failure. Raymond pretended to be strong. "It will happen when it's meant to," he told her. But at night, when he thought she was asleep, she heard him praying, begging God in whispers. Then one day, like sunlight piercing a storm, Anita conceived. The news shook their mansion. Raymond lifted her off her feet, forgetting her fragility. "Finally, Anita, I'm going to be a father again." His laughter echoed off the marble walls. For the first time in years, Anita smiled without forcing it. "Yes, Raymond, we've conquered the past." They decorated the nursery, painted it soft pink, argued over baby names, and celebrated every scan. The shadow of the first child seemed to fade, but fate wasn't done with them. Not all pregnancies count days. Some stretch time into something stranger, heavier, and far more terrifying. 6 months passed. 7, 8. Anita's stomach grew, yet no labor came. Doctors assured them the baby was fine, but the months kept rolling. 10 months, 11, a year. The whispers began. "What kind of pregnancy is this?" Raymond shouted one night, pacing their bedroom. His voice thundered off the walls. "Even elephants don't carry this long. What's happening to us?" Anita sat on the bed, pale and silent, one hand always clutching her stomach. I don't know, Raymond. The doctors say everything is fine, but sometimes it feels like she's not kicking. She's twisting. Raymond stopped. Twisting. Twisting. Anita nodded weakly, tears filling her eyes. Like something inside me is angry. The room fell silent. Then the lights flickered. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Though the sky outside was clear, Raymond exhaled sharply. Tomorrow, we're seeing a specialist. I don't care how much it costs. This has gone on long enough. Anita wanted to speak, but a sudden pain tore through her. She gasped, holding her stomach. Raymond, I think she's trying to say something. Raymond stared at the belly. It shifted, not like a kick, but like a slow, deliberate press, as if a hand were reaching out from within. He stepped back, fear crawling up his spine. Something about this was not normal. While Anita wrestled with a pregnancy that defied time, Veronica sat in her modest home, watching Miracle sketch dreams on paper. Their lives had parted like two rivers, but destiny was quietly preparing to bring them crashing together again. Some children grow into the shape their parents dreamed for them. Others break the mold and become something the world never imagined. Miracle was not supposed to survive, at least not by medical standards. The doctors had told Veronica countless times that her daughter's body was too fragile, her conditions too severe. Yet each surgery stitched her story tighter into the fabric of possibility. By age 10, Miracle had endured more hospital beds than birthdays, but each scar became proof of resilience. And through it all, her eyes never changed. They were big, unblinking, and strangely magnetic. Teachers often paused when they looked at her, unsettled by the way she seemed to see more than they were willing to reveal. Even as a child, when others giggled about games or cartoons, Miracle asked questions like, why do people get sick? How can you stop the body from breaking? Veronica watched with awe. This child was born with a question mark in her soul, she told her pastor once. And every day, she searches for answers. Elliot became her shadow, her bodyguard, her translator to a world that was not always kind. If anyone whispered cruel words at school, he stepped forward with fists or words, whichever struck harder. He walked her to classes, carried her books, and waited outside therapy sessions. She's not my sister, he told his friends once. She's my miracle, my responsibility. Veronica, exhausted from long hours of cleaning schools by day and selling roasted corn by night, often returned home to see them studying side by side. Elliot with his math homework, Miracle with her science textbooks borrowed from older children. One day, Miracle whispered as she traced diagrams of the human body, I will fix people, like the doctors fixed me. Veronica bent down, kissed her forehead, and murmured, then you must study harder than the whole world. Sometimes destiny knocks softly, other times it breaks doors and drags you into its plan. By the time Miracle was 15, her brilliance could no longer be ignored. She topped her classes, dazzled teachers with answers beyond her years, and soon gained scholarships from medical NGOs impressed by her story. Newspapers began to whisper about the girl who had once floated in the river but now floated to the top of every exam she touched. At 18, Miracle entered medical school. She walked through the gates of the university not with arrogance, but with quiet determination, carrying the weight of everyone who said she shouldn't exist. Veronica wept on the day she left home. You are my seed, she told her daughter, but also my harvest. Go and become the doctor you were meant to be. Elliot hugged her tightly, whispering, don't forget, you're not alone. I'll catch up to you. And he did. Inspired by Miracle's drive, Elliot buried himself in books. His sharp mind gravitated toward neurology. The mysteries of the brain fascinated him. While Miracle chased life at its beginning, Elliot was drawn to life's command center. They became a pair of rising stars, their bond unshakable. By 21, Miracle had become the youngest gynecologist in Nigeria, performing complex surgeries that seasoned doctors hesitated to touch. Patients traveled across states to see her. Newspapers called her the girl with the healing hands. Journalists wrote, her eyes are unusual, but maybe they see what others cannot, the fragile thread between life and death. She walked into operating theaters like a general entering battle, calm yet fierce. Nurses whispered that she carried hope in her fingertips. Meanwhile, Elliot graduated with top honors in neurology. Where Miracle was fire, Elliot was calm, water methodical, precise, always steady. Together, they were unstoppable. Their bond turned into a partnership, a young doctor who guided babies into the world, and her brother who safeguarded minds from breaking. Veronica lived to see it all. From roasting corn by the roadside to sitting in a modest but joyful home where her children returned each evening with stories of lives saved, she no longer wore gold jewelry, but her smile glowed brighter than diamonds. Fate has a cruel sense of drama. The very name meant to heal strangers would one day wound two guilty hearts. Across town, Anita's strange pregnancy stretched into years. Doctors could not explain it. Prophets called it a spiritual battle. Herbalists drained their pockets with false promises. Raymond and Anita sold off one asset after another: the luxury cars, the company shares, even the mansion itself. What was once wealth turned into fragments of desperation. By the 15th year, their story had become a cruel neighborhood joke. Anita is still pregnant? She'll deliver when the world ends. Their marriage decayed. Where once they laughed with champagne, now they sat in silence on broken benches outside a rented bungalow with leaking ceilings. Anita's belly remained swollen, her body a ghost of the glamorous woman she once was. Raymond's eyes grew hollow from failure, his pride rotting under whispers of pity. Then, one afternoon, a neighbor burst into their compound. "There's a foundation," she said, panting. "A new doctor, very young, very brilliant. They say she's a miracle worker. She chooses 5 impossible cases every month, for free." Raymond scoffed. "You think she'll pick us? We don't even have transport money." But Anita's hollow eyes flickered. "What's her name?" The neighbor smiled. "They call her Dr. Miracle." Raymond froze, the word cutting him like a blade. Miracle. The name he had tried to bury. The name Anita had forbidden them to speak. Anita whispered, "Raymond, what if it's her?" The past has a way of dressing in white coats and standing in front of you when you least expect it. The next morning, Raymond and Anita followed their neighbor to the Miracle Foundation Center. Dust clung to their clothes, exhaustion etched lines across their faces. They pushed through the crowd at the gate, only to hear the security guard announce, "The 5th and final patient for the month has just been chosen. No exceptions." Anita collapsed to her knees, clutching her massive stomach. "Please. 15 years like this. Just let me see her once." The guard shook his head firmly. "Madam, rules are rules." Raymond stepped forward, voice breaking. "We sold everything. We've been mocked, cursed, forgotten, all for one chance, just one." The guard's eyes softened but did not move. "I'm sorry." Then Anita's gaze landed on a poster pinned to the wall. She blinked, then gasped so loudly the whole line turned to look. The poster bore the image of a young doctor in a white coat, her face calm but her eyes impossibly wide and piercing. Underneath the photo was a short statement. "I was abandoned at birth because of my medical conditions. I survived after multiple surgeries and the sacrifice of my foster mother. Today, I heal others with the same grace that once saved me. Dr. Miracle." Anita's lips trembled. She pressed her hand against the paper, tears spilling. "Those eyes," she whispered. "Raymond, those are my daughter's eyes. The baby I threw into the river." Raymond staggered back as if struck by lightning. His knees buckled, his breath caught. No, it can't be." The neighbor looked at them in shock. "What are you saying? That this doctor, this miracle worker, is your child?" Anita broke down, wailing. "Yes, she's the one I abandoned, and now she is the doctor who heals others, while I rot with this cursed pregnancy." Raymond sank to the ground, head in his hands. "Oh God, we threw away our future." The guard, overhearing the commotion, rushed inside to call the coordinator. Minutes later, a woman in a white coat approached, suspicion in her eyes. Raymond fell to his knees. "Please," he begged, "tell Dr. Miracle that her parents are here, the ones who failed her, the ones who left her for dead. Tell her we are dying and beg for mercy." The coordinator hesitated, her face caught between disbelief and pity. "Dr. Miracle is in surgery." "But I will tell her." The gate closed. Anita and Raymond remained outside, broken, waiting. Hours later, a sleek black SUV rolled out of the compound. The guard pointed casually. "That's her. Dr. Miracle." Raymond and Anita stared, hearts pounding. But the car did not stop. The tinted windows reflected their faces back at them, two ghosts begging for forgiveness as the vehicle vanished into the city night. Forgiveness is easy when the wound is shallow. But what happens when the scar is the story of your life? For 3 days straight, Anita and Raymond lingered at the gates of the Miracle Foundation. They came before sunrise and left only when the guards insisted. They sat on the dusty curb with bottles of water, Anita's swollen belly pressing against her legs, Raymond's once proud shoulders slumped like an old gatepost. Neighbors passing by whispered, "See them. The rich who once spat on people's pain are now beggars of mercy." Every car that entered made Anita's heart leap, only for disappointment to slap her back down. On the fourth day, her body shook from exhaustion. "Raymond," she whispered weakly, "I can't go home. I must see her. Even if it's the last thing I do." Raymond held her hand, his eyes hollow. He knew she wasn't exaggerating. That evening, around 7 p.m., a black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the gate. The guards saluted, the car window lowered slightly. Dr. Miracle's face appeared calm, focused, untouched by the dust of the street. Anita gasped, tears already rushing to her cheeks. "Please," she cried, falling to her knees. "Please forgive us. We are your parents. We are the ones who threw you away," Raymond added desperately. "We have suffered since then. Our wealth is gone. Our joy is gone. Your mother has carried this cursed pregnancy for 15 years. Please, only you can save her." For a moment, Miracle's eyes locked on them. The same piercing eyes they had once rejected now glared from behind the tinted glass. The driver shifted uncomfortably, waiting for her command. Miracle's lips pressed into a thin line. Without a word, she gestured forward. The window rolled up. The SUV glided through the gate and disappeared into the compound. Anita collapsed, sobbing into the dust. Raymond held her, his chest heaving. "She saw us," Anita wailed, "and she ignored us. Some storms rage outside, others rage in the heart, and those are harder to escape." Inside the compound, Miracle stormed through the back corridor, her steps fast, her chest tight. She ripped off her gloves, still stained from surgery. She wanted to scream, but her voice betrayed her. Veronica sat in the living room knitting a sweater. She looked up immediately. "Daughter, what is wrong? Your spirit is not at peace." Miracle dropped onto the couch, her hands trembling. "They were outside, Mom. Those people. They said they are my parents." The yarn slipped from Veronica's hands. "Your biological parents?" Miracle nodded, her throat tight. "The ones who threw me into the river. The ones who decided I was not good enough to be loved." Veronica's eyes filled with tears. She rose slowly, sat beside her daughter, and took her hands. "And what did you do?" "I ignored them," Miracle whispered. "I drove past, but now I feel like my chest is tearing apart." Before Veronica could answer, the front door burst open. Elliot walked in, still in his white lab coat, stethoscope hanging loosely around his neck. One look at Miracle's face told him everything. "What happened?" "They're here," she murmured. Elliot frowned. "Who?" "Her parents," Veronica said softly. Elliot's jaw tightened. "Those cowards? They dare to show their faces after what they did?" "They said they are dying," Miracle admitted, guilt creeping into her voice. Elliot scoffed bitterly. "And so what? Let them die. Did they care if you died in that river? Did they sell all they had for you the way Mom did? No, they abandoned you like trash, and now they want forgiveness because it suits them?" Veronica touched his arm gently. "Son, forgiveness is not for them, it is for us, so that our hearts do not turn to stone." Elliot sighed, torn between rage and reason. "So what will you do, Miracle?" Miracle looked at her mother, then her brother. Her voice trembled. "I will face them, once, to hear what they have to say. When the past knocks on your door, you can ignore it, but when it kneels at your gate, you must answer." The next evening, Miracle summoned the guards. "Bring them in," she said quietly. Minutes later, Anita and Raymond stepped into the modest home. Their eyes darted around nervously. It was not the mansion they once had, but it radiated something richer, warmth, peace, and the faint smell of Veronica's soup simmering in the kitchen. Miracle stood before them, her white coat still on, her stethoscope gleaming under the bulb. Elliot stood at her side, arms folded, eyes sharp with disdain. Veronica sat quietly, watching with the patience of a woman who knew storms must pass before healing begins. Anita's knees buckled the moment she saw her daughter. She fell forward, clutching her swollen belly. "Please forgive us," she cried. "We were blind, we were foolish. We did not know you were a blessing. We have paid for our sin. Look at me, I have carried this cursed pregnancy for 15 years. Help me, my daughter. Save me." Raymond knelt too, his voice raw. "Miracle, I am not proud of who I was. I mocked you before you could even breathe. But not a day has passed that I haven't thought of you. I beg you, if there is any mercy left in your heart, give us a second chance, Elliot scoffed. Second chance? You had your chance and you threw it into a river. Do you know what this woman, he pointed at Veronica, gave up to raise her? Everything. And you dare to call yourself her parents? Anita sobbed harder. We are not asking to be her parents again. We only beg to live. To see tomorrow. Miracle's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She stepped closer, her voice steady but cold. Listen to me. I forgive you, but you will never be my parents. Veronica is my mother. Elliot is my brother. You are strangers who lost the right to claim me the day you abandoned me. If you want my help as a doctor, I will give it. But if you want my heart, it is no longer yours. Veronica nodded slowly, pride and sorrow mingling in her gaze. Elliot looked away, jaw clenched, but a flicker of relief passed through his eyes. Anita tried to speak again but suddenly gasped. Pain tore through her body. She clutched her belly, screaming, Raymond! It's happening! Something is wrong! Raymond panicked, lifting her into his arms. Help her, please! He shouted. Miracle's instincts kicked in. Whatever rage she carried, her training was stronger. Get her to the hospital now, she commanded. Nurses rushed to prepare. Elliot grabbed the car keys. Within minutes, they were speeding through the Lagos night, Anita groaning in the back seat, Raymond whispering frantic prayers. In the harsh white light of the hospital delivery room, Anita's screams pierced the air. Miracle stood over her, gloved hands steady, but when the baby finally arrived, a hush fell over the room. Miracle froze, her breath caught in her throat. For what lay in her arms was not just a child, it was a mirror of the curse that had once doomed her. Sometimes life circles back to test us, giving us a chance to choose differently when history repeats itself. The delivery room throbbed with urgency. Monitors beeped, nurses shouted orders, sweat beaded down foreheads. Anita's cries shook the sterile walls, her body writhing after 15 years of unnatural stillness. Raymond clutched her hand, tears soaking his cheeks. Hold on, Anita. Hold on! Miracle stood at the foot of the bed, gloved hands steady, though her heart raced. Every instinct told her to remain professional, but inside, her emotions warred like thunder and lightning. Here she was, delivering a child for the woman who had once refused to deliver her into life with love. At last, with one final scream, the baby slid into Miracle's hands. Silence filled the room. No loud wail, no joyful cries, just a frail, trembling infant, her skin pale, her chest dented, her limbs slightly twisted. Miracle froze. It was like staring into a mirror of her own beginning, the same fragile body, the same struggling breath, the same haunting eyes too large for such a tiny face. For a moment, time broke. She was no longer doctor, Miracle, the accomplished surgeon. She was once again the baby wrapped in a shawl, floating on the river, waiting to be chosen. Raymond broke the silence first. Is she alive? He asked, his voice shaking. Miracle's hands trembled as she pressed her stethoscope against the baby's chest. A faint heartbeat fluttered, weak but present. Relief and fear collided in her chest. She's alive, Miracle said finally. Anita reached forward, tears spilling freely. Give her, to me, she whispered. For the first time in decades, her arms opened not in rejection but in longing. Miracle hesitated. Then slowly, she placed the fragile child into Anita's embrace. Anita cradled the baby close, rocking her gently. My daughter, she murmured, voice breaking. You are mine. No matter how you look, no matter what it costs, I will never let you go. Raymond leaned close, pressing a trembling kiss to the child's forehead. His pride, once too heavy to bow, broke completely. You are wanted, he whispered. You are loved. Miracle's chest tightened painfully. This was not the same Anita and Raymond who had once spat venom at the sight of her. These were two broken people who had walked through fire and were now begging the chance to love differently. Healing does not always arrive with answers. Sometimes it arrives as a question. Will you choose love this time? Miracle turned away, swallowing hard. She walked out into the hospital corridor, peeling off her gloves. Elliot was waiting, pacing. How did it go? He asked quickly. She's alive, Miracle whispered. Elliot exhaled in relief. And them? Miracle shook her head. They're changed, Elliot. I saw it in their eyes. Elliot's fists clenched. Changed or not, they don't deserve you. They threw you away. Mom picked you up. That's the truth. I know, Miracle said softly. Her eyes drifted toward the ward where Anita and Raymond sat, huddled over their new baby. But the child, she's innocent. She deserves love. She deserves a chance. Veronica appeared then, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She placed a hand on Miracle's arm. "Daughter," she said gently. "Sometimes God allows pain to repeat itself so we can choose differently the second time. You were rejected, but you chose to forgive. Now this baby has come to ask if you will help her too." Miracle closed her eyes. A single tear escaped. "I will help. It's her," she whispered. "Not for Anita, not for Raymond, but for her." Love has a way of creating families that blood cannot define. The weeks that followed tested everyone. The baby, whom Anita named Destiny, required constant medical care. Surgeries, scans, feeding tubes, each procedure tore at Raymond and Anita's already fragile finances. They tried, but their poverty left them helpless. It was Miracle who stepped in, arranging the best pediatric specialists, providing breast milk supplements, and monitoring every step of Destiny's fragile development. Elliot transformed the nursery at their home into a safe haven, painting the walls with soft colors, lining the shelves with books and toys, setting up music that lulled the baby to sleep. Veronica, ever the mother, spent long nights rocking Destiny when Anita was too exhausted to continue. She whispered prayers, the same ones she had whispered over Miracle years ago. "You will live. You will grow. You will shine." Raymond and Anita remained on the sidelines present, grateful, but painfully aware of their failures. Each time they reached for Miracle's affection, she offered professionalism instead. She had forgiven, but the wall remained. One evening, as Destiny lay sleeping in the incubator, Anita sat beside Miracle. Her face was pale, her body weak, but her eyes glowed with something new, sincerity. "I cannot undo what I did to you," she whispered. "But I can promise never to repeat it. Destiny will never know rejection. Even if I must beg on the streets, I will give her love." Miracle studied her, searching for deception. But all she saw was brokenness, the kind that could only be healed by truth. "Keep that promise," Miracle said at last, "because love is not a privilege, it is a duty." Anita nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. The river had once rejected Miracle's death. Now life itself demanded she become a river for another child. Months turned into years. Destiny fought like her sister before her. Surgery after surgery, treatment after treatment, she grew stronger. Her frailty softened, her lungs expanded, her small body filled with stubborn resilience. And like Miracle, her eyes remained wide, unblinking, searching the world with haunting depth. Raymond and Anita found redemption in their devotion. They never left Destiny's side. They sold what little remained, endured mockery from neighbors, and bent themselves low in humility. Though they never regained Miracle's trust fully, they gained something else: the chance to finally parent with courage. Miracle continued her medical career, her name now celebrated across nations. Elliot became a world-renowned neurologist. Together, they formed an unstoppable duo, their brilliance saving countless lives. Yet every evening, they returned home not to mansions or luxuries, but to Veronica's modest veranda, where laughter, prayer, and family mattered most. Destiny grew in that circle of love, a living reminder that life gives second chances, but never without scars. The sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Veronica sat in her rocking chair, knitting quietly. Miracle leaned against the railing, sipping juice after another long day of surgeries. Elliot lounged nearby, flipping through medical journals. Destiny toddled across the compound, her laugh ringing like music. Anita and Raymond sat quietly in the corner, watching. They no longer held titles of power or wealth. They were not celebrated, but they were present. They had learned that presence was its own kind of treasure. Destiny ran to Miracle, tugging her white coat. "Auntie Doc, tell me story." Miracle bent down, kissed her forehead, and smiled. "Your story is still being written, little one, but I will tell you this: no matter how you begin, love can change the ending." She lifted Destiny into her arms. Elliot joined, ruffling the girl's hair. Veronica looked on, tears glistening. For the first time in years, Anita and Raymond smiled with unbroken sincerity. And in that quiet evening, surrounded by laughter and scars, the family that once shattered found a fragile kind of healing, not perfect, not whole, but real. Children are not problems to discard. They are gifts to embrace. A child rejected today may become the blessing you search for tomorrow. Forgiveness is strength, but boundaries are wisdom. Parenting is not about perfection, it is about presence, love, and the courage to stay.